first of all.
I'm good.
Good. All right.
Great.
Okay. Hey, Tristan, were we going to try to do that simulation thing you were telling me about, or no?
It's up to you. You can just. Did you get the attachment?
That's a good question. I got the link, but they wanted $40 from me to do it.
Yeah, I can put it up if you want. It came from Eric. See here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Yeah, if you want, I'll go ahead and put it up. So up to screenshot. So
All right.
You can go from there.
Okay. That sounds good to me. Yeah, because I mean, I went to that site and they said, "Oh, here, we want $40." I'm like, no. I make this stuff. I don't need to pay $40 to see it. Seriously. Okay. Well, in the meantime, so basically, can everybody see my OneNote screen? I guess that's the first question I should ask. If you can see a...
Just switched over to Tutor Tuesday, Thursday. You had it on your note screen.
Yeah, hopefully I still have it there.
It's showing Tristan now.
Oh, okay, good. We'll get him done first. Okay, Paul asked a question. I have a question about, is there a trick to figuring out subnetting? No, there's like 15 of them. And over time, we will be going through a couple of these. So there's not really a trick, actually. It's more of a, once you figure out the system, once you figure out the correct way to figure out subnetting, then you got it. If you want to call it a trick, that's fine. I totally see that. But there's certain things in place, certain that we want to know. Okay, so I'm still waiting to view Tristan's screen here. So once we get Tristan's screen in her, I'll get going on what the subject was that we got in an email. No, there's the whole thing about subnetting is to start with just a couple of key things, really. And I don't have control of the screen right now, but maybe later if there's time I'll let you know. But the whole thing is with subnetting, just understand that everything, you got to have a basic starting point for everything. As far as, like, the way I've always done it, and this is just me, Paul, and for everybody else, is this diagram looks familiar. Anyway, the Class C subnet is a /24, and at /24, you can have up to 254 devices because you have up to 256 addresses, okay? So when you're trying to figure out subnetting, you're trying to figure out how many devices are there. Just remember this basic principle. As you move up or down as far as the slash number, so let's say we got /24. If you move up, the number of addresses that you have available get cut in half. And if you move back, the number of addresses that you have available to you will double. It's a very simple way to start it off, and there's way more to it than just that. But when you're trying to figure out, like we got this diagram right in front of here. So Paul, thank you for that question because, and Augustine, thank you for sending that link. I have not had a chance to check that one out, but I'm sure it's a good one. Anyway, that's for CCNA. Yep, if you're going to do a CCNA exam, you got to know subnetting as well. But the funny thing is this Tristan, is this like a Network Plus lab or something like that? It is, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm going to try to say this without giving anything away, but you're just as likely, if not more likely, to see this kind of a diagram on the CCNA test than you are on Network Plus. And
yeah, I agree.
The gist of it is that with the CCNT, your most likely thing is they're going to have some IP addresses, some subnet masks, and they're going to ask you what is the problem. Why can't a certain device connect? And it's almost always the fact that the subnet is defined incorrectly. So, all right. Now, with this particular thing, this is a good exercise to go through here, and this will actually take us a decent amount of time, which that's fine. We got time here. Okay, so this thing says, using your understanding of IP addresses and subnet masks, place the correct IP addresses in a position based on the topology presented here. Okay, so Paul, you asked about tricks. We're going to get a couple tricks here. All right. First couple of things. When you're talking about, so to match the correct information, drag the correct IP address to its location and drop it beside the device needing that specific address. Okay. All right. So first couple of things here. All right. You probably, well, number one, they're talking about the firewalls, default gateways, things like that. All right. The first thing you have to figure out is, I'm just going to start at the top here where it says PC5, and you got switch 5 here, and you've got a router there that says default gateway address. All righty. Well, keep in mind one thing about routers. Routers host multiple networks. So as of right now, what you're seeing here is the router, this is R3 I'm talking about. The first router in the diagram if you're moving from top to bottom. The two IP addresses that you see below don't have any relevance on the IP address that's missing. Okay, that's the first thing you got to understand about routers. Each port, each interface on a router, more than likely is going to be connecting to a different subnet. Why? Because routers route traffic between networks. So in essence, this router is actually routing traffic among 3 different networks. Okay, so the first thing you have to do is not get trapped. The first thing you have to do is realize, okay, this router's got 2 other addresses coming out of port 0 and port 1. Serial port 0, serial port 1, that's the 3.9 address on the left, and the 3.5 address on the right, and those have no bearing on the answer. Now let's get back up to where it says default gateway address. Okay. Now understand one thing also, when you're taking the test, if you get some kind of a drag and drop, your first move here is to start eliminating wrong answers. Okay? For example, if I'm taking a look at this default gateway address, I'm seeing the addresses below. And I'm going to tell you right now that the 10 addresses obviously are not going to be the answer, right? Because what is that network? It's a private network starting at 172.21. Now here's the thing you really want to keep in mind, okay? Look closely at the first IP address. It says 172.21.3.68/26. Now that /26, of course, is the big key. Let me ask anybody who wants to answer this question. Given the /26, does that mean for sure that the answer is going to be a 172.21.3 address? Yes or no? Absolutely. Paul's saying yes. It should be 172.21.3 something. That's absolutely correct. Here's the reason why. Anything a /24 and beyond, the first 3 numbers are always the same, right? Because you have a Class C subnet, that's a /24. The first 3 numbers are the same. So any number that's higher than that, the first 3 numbers are the same. Okay? So it's definitely a 172.21.3. Okay. Now, let's drill this down a little further. Okay? Hey Tristan, since you're sharing your screen, if you could get Notepad up next to it or something like that, and we could actually work some numbers out here. Like we have a little drawing board here, you know what I mean? You're the man, Tristan. By the way, you're still the only remuneration from the past weekend. So. Yeah, just shrink that over. Ooh, that went too far right. We'll get that back on the screen in a minute. There we go. Here it comes. Yeah, let's just make that thing a little bit more narrow there. Beautiful. Okay, that's perfect. Okay, that's perfect. We can move that around as we go. All right, so we know it's a 172.21.3.68. Okay, so now there's a number of different ways you can do this, okay? But let's look at the fact that it's a /26. Now Tristan, put up there a /25 if you don't mind. There's a point I want to make here. See, for an exercise like this, ladies and gentlemen, what you want to know is what's the first IP address in all these different subnets. So if it's /25, so if it were /25, oh, you're going the long way, okay.
How you want me to do it?
Just a /25.
/25 like that?
Yeah. Okay. So in that respect, okay, we are working with a concept called the interesting octet. In the interesting octet, which is the octet where the numbers are not all the same, what we have to determine for each of these networks is what are the first addresses. All right. So if you, here's a principle, okay, if a /24 is 256 addresses, a /25, how many addresses each?
128.
128. Okie dokie. Now, so after the /25 there, Tristan, what's the first number in the range? Any of these ranges? The very first IP address would be what?
.1.
Actually, it's a .0. You're very close. It's .0.
Oh,
Remember, if this were
Okay.
if this were /24, I'm not talking about eligible addresses for devices. I'm just talking about address in general. Okay.
Right.
So if it were /24, that you'd have one first number, it'd be a 0. In fact, Tristan, why don't you go ahead and put that up on the line above, if you don't mind, my friend? Put like a /24 up there, and then, oh, I do have control. Oh, okay. Well, I'll do it. Fine. Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. First, I'm talking. This is what I'm talking up here. Let me just get this little thing going. Okay, so this is a slash. These are the first numbers over here on the right. Okay. Paul, I guess you're right. There is a trick or two to this. Okay, so you said there's 100. Oh, let's go with number of addresses. Let's just do this properly here. Number of addresses. Okay. All the ones that. Okay. 256. First number. There's only one. It's a 0. Okay. All right. There you go. Close enough. Okay, so then it's /25. You said there's 120 addresses per?
Yep.
Okay, so the first number is a 0. Here's how you do the formula. You add the number of addresses. So your first numbers of your octets are 0 and 128. Let's do another one here. /26. Okay, if we're cutting in half here, ladies and gentlemen, how many addresses are available for this?
64.
64. Okay, so with this pattern, you tell me what the first numbers are. 0, comma, what's the next one? You're adding here. $64, right, Paul? Okay, 64. And then what? $128, right. And then I'll do the last one here, it's 192. Now, here's where you got to be a little bit careful, okay? That's the first number. Can we assign the first number to a device? No, we cannot. Okay. Now, here's the thing you got to know about this. When they talk about a default gateway address, the default gateway address is usually the first available number in the subnet. Okay. So we can't do 64 here. Because this address falls, look at this address back up here. It falls in between 64 and 128, right? We can all agree on this one, can't we? So if it falls between 64 and 128, all right, 64 is the first address, but it's not the first available address. What must be the default gateway address there? I just said 65. Well, I do believe we have a 65 down here, don't we? Yeah, we do. Right there. All right.
It's just a screenshot.
Ah, rats. Well, okay then. Well, that one's 65. So that's fair enough. That one, we'll do a few of these, but that one's a 65. All right, we can just go with that. We'll go with the screenshot here. Eric, I think you're the one who sent this. Is that so far so good on the first one?
Yeah, I'm the one that sent it in.
Okay.
Give me a second,
doing this. Yeah, no problem. No problem.
If you go to sort by lab type, it's the second one, fourth one down.
Which one?
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Sort by lab type. The second tab, the tab up top. Instead of by chapter, sort by lab type, drag and drop. And then it's intermediate IP4 addressing practice 1, the fourth one. Yep.
Take it away, Jason.
Well, fair enough. Okay. Where's it 65? There it is. Okay. Stick that one in there. Okay, does that first thing, last address in the block is a broadcast, Paul? Yes. Yes, it is. Okay. Let's make sure it's the same lab here. There we are. Okay, so this is how we get this up. Now, some of you are thinking, man, this takes a long time. Well, if you practice enough before you take the test here, it won't take you that long on the test. In fact, what you might want to do on the scratch paper on the test is just maybe write this down really quickly during the tutorial. I've mentioned this before in these tutor sessions. When you get the tutorial to do, they give you like 5 minutes, 7 minutes, I forget what. But you know what? It takes about 30 seconds to go through it. So just leave that clock running and jot down on the scratch pad the last, some of this stuff, or port numbers or whatever it is you need to do. Okay, so let's do another one of these here. All right. Now from here, notice that you have, let's see, let's grab up, let's do another default gateway. Let's do this one here. All right. So let's take this here. Okay, we already have the chart kind of built here. Now this is a /27 down here. All right. I'm going to scroll this down just a little bit because we got that first address covered already. Okay. So here we go. There. All right. Let me get the notepad back up. There we go. Okay, so all right, if it's a /27, help me out here. How many addresses in the block?
32.
32. Yes. Why can't I get this tab over? There we go. Try this again. Okay. Okay, so now you all need to tell me what all these first numbers are now. Start talking or chatting. 32, yep. 64, uh-huh. Oh, Augustin's going to town here. I like it. 96, yep. 128, uh-huh. 1, the next one. You got the pattern going, keep going, somebody. What's the next first number up?
150.
One what?
Are you talking about the, well, oh, okay, up there.
160, right, 160, okay. 192, I'll help you finish it up here. 224, those are all your first numbers. Okay, so if we're looking for a default gateway address here, all right. So the 172.16.4.55 is the /27. 55 falls in between which two number ranges here?
32 and 64.
Yeah. Okay, so what's the address? Remember, default gateway is the first available address. So what's the first available address here?
Should be 33 if 32 is the first address.
That's exactly right. And then the only thing you have to be careful about is this. Look, you got 172.16.4. So now I'm looking for a very specific address down here. I am looking for 172.16.4.33. There it is. Okay. So we have a couple of the gateway ones done as it relates to this. All right. Now we got one more default gateway. So okay, so Paul just put up a question. So using all these subnets, isolate the networks from each other, right? Right. That's exactly the reason you do it. So that you have better addressing, better security in the networks. Absolutely. Okay. Looks like we got one more default gateway to fill out right over here. It's coming from this PC down here. Now this is where they're going to try to trick you on the test perhaps. Because you see, oh, switch here, switch there. Well, how am I supposed to figure out what the default gateway address is? Let me say this as clearly as I can. Switches have zero to do with default gateway addresses. It's all router stuff. Does that make sense?
Perfect.
Okay. Very good. All right. So you ignore the two switches. You focus on the router. It's asking for the default gateway address here. All righty. So let's go with this. All right. So we already did the /27. A couple of you already mentioned 160 is the number. So what's the actual address? 160. That's the first number. 161, right. So now we're going to look for a 172.16.5.161. 161. There it is. Okay. Now, let's go a little further here. So now it's saying, okay, well, I need to figure out the address of this PC number 2. Well, let me bring up the notepad back for a minute. Okay. So you might be thinking, well, geez, this could be like a number of different addresses. Okay, but here's the reality. It's going to be an address in between a couple of numbers, 162, and then what's the broadcast address? 192, Paul said.
191.
Paul is correct. So 191 is the, yeah, well, 192 is the first address, so 191 is the actual, wait, let me back up a minute. 191 is the actual broadcast address, because 192 is the last available, or no, excuse me, I'm sorry. 191 is the broadcast address because 192 is the first available address for the next segment. I was on the right track, I just didn't finish it, all right? So if the range is from 160 to 191, what are we going to look, what are we going to look for down here? It's got to be the 190 address, okay? Because look, you got 16.5, okay, so we got 16.5.191, nope, that's the broadcast. 190, well, there's only one address here, it must be. But just to finish this thought, 196 is outside the range, isn't it?
Correct.
All right, so it's 190. Okay, very good. Okay, so now we're getting to the interesting parts over here, okay? Because you're looking at this router and, you know, it's like, okay, I got an address up here, but I'm supposed to figure out what the address is down here, and I'm not really sure which way this is going and all this good stuff. Okay. Couple of things on this, all right? First things first, when in doubt, look at your answers here. So we've got a 172.21.3, so it's going to be a 172.21.3. There's only 2 of these left. We got 9 through 10. But even if you didn't have that, let's figure this out for a minute, okay? Because people see this and then they see that, well, I don't know what the address is. Well, let's take a look here, all right? You're actually going to find this one to be pretty somewhat fascinating anyway, all right? Okay, so we've got these in halves. Now, if we go down one more here, how many addresses in a /28?
16.
16. How many in a /29?
8.
8. Okay. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. /30, Paul just put in there 4. Okay. Now, let me ask you something, though. If there's 4 addresses, how many addresses can actually be assigned?
2.
Only 2 can be assigned. Yes. Actually, I should put that down here. Okay, so all of your first numbers here then ladies and gents, are going to be in multiples of 4. Now, Paul, you said, is there a trick? Well, for this one, there is. And by the way, there's also a real-life reason why you'll see slash 30s going around. Somebody's listening. All right. Okay. So, okay, here's some things we know. That's oh, Tristan, you got control back. See if I can change myself to the presenter here. Okay, I'm back. All right, get ready to see this still? Okay, here's the point. In a slash 30, this is a special type of network. And there's a reason they do this in real life. Some of you might already know this. So in this situation, 2 cannot be used. All right? So which ones can be used? Well, if 0, 1, 2, and 3 are the addresses, only the 1 and the 2 can be used, the 2 in the middle. So what do I mean by that? Well, yeah, Paul's starting us. So 1 and 2 can be used, 5 and 6 can be used. Yeah, exactly. 9 and 10 can be used, etc. All right, now let's get back over here. The reason they do slash 30s on networks is to preserve IP addresses. A lot of times when you're seeing just 2 routers connected, you'll be seeing a slash 30. Okay, so this actually becomes pretty easy then, because this is 21.3.9. What's the only other address available for this little subnet here? There's only one more address it can be. It's 10. Yeah, okay, so let's try this in. Same thing over here. If this is a slash 30, let me get that notepad back up for you here. If this is a slash 30, and the first number is 5, then the next one has to be what? There's only one other address it could possibly be. Augustine says 6. Augustine is correct. Okay. How many more IP addresses do we have to fill? You know what I'm going to do on this one, where it says firewall here? I think I'm going to let somebody figure this out. I'm just going to shut up for a minute and see what you all come up with. But I will put the notepad back up so you can have it. As soon as somebody blurts out what they think the answer is or puts it in the question box, then we will examine this. Okay, got a couple of guesses so far. Well, at least one guess. Got 4 guesses, 3 guesses. It's a 10 dot. Okay, 3 guesses, 3 guesses. Okay. So for those of you who can't see the question box, we've got 10.1.8, we've got .7, we've got a couple of guesses for .6. Well, all right. Okay then. By the way, you can see I very purposely left this one out. But okay. Now, some of the information that you put in the question box is correct, and some we need to adjust just a little bit. All right. So going kind of step by step here. All right. So for your 29th, let's just go with the numbers here. I'm not going to do all of them, obviously, but I'll just go and put in the first few here. So we've got 0, 8, 16, 24, 32, and that goes from there. Okay. So I'm looking at this firewall. The address is in between 0 and 8. So what's the actual range of addresses for that? 0 through what? Remember, these are first numbers of each subnet. So it's a 0 through what? 7. Exactly. It's a 0 through 7. Okay. And then, so let me just put this down here. Example of a /29, 0 through 7. It means that what through what can be used. One through 6. Okay, very good. 1 through 6 can be used. Alrighty, so we've got a 10.1.1 here. Now we said 7 was a broadcast. That one is no good. This one's out of range. But we got this one right here, 6. Did I leave any of these out? I don't think so. There's a submit button down here. Check my answers. What do you think? What do you think, ladies and gentlemen? Should we click this? Should we check our answers now? Oh, will you look at that? We did it. You did it. Eric and anybody else who wants to chime in, did this help a little? Good. So Paul, if there's such a thing as a trick to this, IPv6, you don't have to worry about doing that on this test, thankfully. Now, a couple of years from now, oh boy, let's see. But although it's not as bad, because with IPv6, even though it's 32 numbers, there's only like, a couple at a time you have to deal with. But, okay, the whole thing about this, though, ladies and gentlemen, serious point is, get committed to doing something like this when you're studying, have it in front of you, use that as to your advantage. Because the most important thing to know, and Paul, this is kind of for you, but this is for everybody really. Most important thing to know about subnets is sizing. How the sizes are. If you can get that knocked out, you're going to be in really good shape. In /27, where does the 96 come from, Michael? Well, it comes from the fact that we start with 0, and because there's 32 addresses in each one, the first address of each block is 32 more than the previous. So 32 plus 32 is 64, plus 32 is 96. And then we got 128, 160, 192, and 224. Michael, does that help? Sometimes it's a matter of just trusting your addition. So, but anyway, look, I'll tell you all, did I just list the networks? I listed some of them. I didn't list every single one, but, enough for us to get through this project, George. Listen, oh yeah, let me get back up here. I'll show my screen again in just a minute. Okay. There we go. Okay, so really what it comes down to is the most important thing is to know your sizes, know your segments, know how those are formed. Practice that as much as you can. When you get that down, I'm not saying if you get that down. When you get that down, this is going to be pretty easy to deal with. It does take time. It does take practice. It took me, I first learned about this in 2005. It took me a decent amount of time to really, really solidify this. Frankly, most of the explanations I read on the subject were not very good, so that didn't help. And I remember one I read that actually started to kind of make this make sense, and I just took it from there. So yeah, it's just a matter of emphasizing and then those blocks. Focus on the blocks. All right. So that's the segmenting. Believe it or not, it took up, well, at least half this time. So question-wise, floor's open. Anybody, anything? Door's wide open. Or I have a couple other things I can show you from Tuesday's session. Okay, Paul, you say it's more a matter of keeping it in your head if you aren't setting up a network all the time or making adjustments to it. That is somewhat true. Let me add to that, though. The thing you really want to keep in your head is a few conceptual ideas. Now, me, I've done this so much, I've got the numbers pretty much ingrained in my skull. But for those of you who are maybe newer to this, it's a matter of understanding concepts. And, you know, if you can remember, move up a slash, cut the addresses in half. If you can remember that much, then you're in good shape. You know, it's the same thing. Lower the slash, double the addresses. I mean, you can go either way depending upon the size of your subnet. And then it's just a matter of figuring out those blocks. And we just gave you a little tip there. If you start with 0, every time you add the number of addresses, you got a new block. So it's about basically 3 or 4 different tricks, tips, concept things, if you will. So, Jim, I cannot see what you're trying to show us. So, anyway. All right, a couple of things that came up on Tuesday. Just show you this really quickly. Security Plus ports. Anybody in here doing Security Plus right now? Or you're going to do Security Plus at some point? Yeah? Okay. Next one? All right. So I got a question on Security Plus. Oh, I got echo now. So the question on Security Plus is, which port numbers do I have to know? Well, I got them on the screen right now. There's about, what, 10 of them? 11 maybe? They all come from the test objectives. And by the way, if you are curious about those types of things, make sure that when you're studying any exam, that you have a copy of the test objectives nearby. It doesn't have to be on paper, it can be electronic, but whatever. As I've said this a number of times, but you just want to make sure that before you sit for an exam, you've taken the time to go through every line of every objective. And that way, that'll just get your confidence up, because as you're studying for that, if you know what objective is being asked about on the test, and you've already got your mental notes or whatever, it'll probably make it a little bit easier for that. Network Plus ports, give me a minute, and I will go and hunt those down for you. Pretty similar to Security Plus. There's a few more, though, I think. So, see if I can find this really quickly on my other screen. While I'm doing that, another question came up about A+ commands. Again, I pulled these from the objectives. It's a matter of, you got a certification on Monday, Jason? You're taking a test on Monday. Oh, you're taking the test on Monday. Gotcha. Okay. Well, go get them then. Yeah, sure. One thing about CompTIA tests as well, some general advice, and I think I'll get some backup on this. It's important not to overthink questions. Like, they really don't try to trick you. Of course, they want to test your troubleshooting skills, and they will do that. But the CompTIA tests are definitely more straightforward than some tests I've seen. I'm still trying to find these port numbers here, so give me just a minute. Here we go. Compare and contrast. I'll just grab this. I don't know how this is going to look when I paste it in the OneNote, so forgive me in advance. But these are the last couple of sections on the Network Plus test. So that's kind of a mess right now, but didn't give me all these either, so let me just clean this up a little bit. I got this right off the CompTIA website. But yeah, it's pretty similar. There's a couple different ones here, but like, for example, the SIP ports for telecommunications, the real-time protocol ports, there's a couple new ones here, but if you go and get a copy of the test objectives, which you really should before you sit for any test, you will see the very last two main topics, 5.9 and 5.10 actually, give you all those different port numbers. Oh, and by the way, shameless plug, the project workbook that we have with these courses, that's got it in there as well, somewhere in the session 5 practices. So another way you can get some practice there. But yeah, you got some ports there, and then some other ports you need to know about for the Network Plus exam. They start right here. So you've got FTP, SNMP, SSH, Telnet. A lot of these are pretty similar to Security Plus, but like I said, that's right there. Okay. Good one. So who's next? Mr. Linux has yet to give his obligatory Linux rules Windows stinks. Soliloquy yet, but okay. So you can reassign the ports though and use port forwarding for security. You can, but you're not going to see that happen too often, just because, especially in a business environment, and once you start kind of trying to get ports to do different things, you have a huge risk as far as blowing up business applications and the way they work. So right, exactly. Yeah, just stick with what Jim, what are you trying to show us? Oh,
I was just
not sure, but
I was just trying to figure out what was going on. I just came in. I was on the phone call listening in. But last week they had, since I came in late for this part of it, I didn't know if the chat box had been fixed.
Oh yeah, they said use the question box instead of the chat box. Paul's got a question. How can you block DDoS attacks? Distributed denial of service. Get yourself a good intrusion prevention system appliance and software. That's the best way to do that, and make sure it's tuned up to A, ward off those attacks, and B, not have a lot of false positives where it's blocking your regular traffic. Configuring configuring firewalls help too, but the intrusion prevention system devices are really the ones that specialize in that, Paul. That's the fun. Okay, block is not a good word here. Paul, you're right. Stephen, you're right. Once a DDoS attack starts, it's pretty hard to get it to stop. But I was kind of thinking block in the sense of prevent. So that's probably the better word, Paul, for that. But for blocking, Stephen, you make a good point. But once an attack has started, well, you're pretty much stuck. So you unplug everything.
Excuse me.
I remember I was actually at a state government agency one time, and they're doing a consult, and they're asking me, it's like, how can we make our network 100% secure? I said, unplug everything.
And put it in the bottom of the sea under a Faraday cage.
Yeah, something like that. So when you make something that kill a DDoS attack, you'll be rich? Yeah, if you can sell, sure. Oh, that's funny. But seriously, that's what I told the group. I'm like, well, then unplug everything. You gotta make sure we're 100% secure. I just told you how. I said, what? No network is 100% secure. And look, this was a conversation I was having with them, like, this was like late 90s. I mean, so you thought people were panicked about it then. I mean, gosh, look at now. So, okay, what else we got? We got a little time left.
Hey, Jason, this is Eric.
Yeah.
You just remind me, I noticed on your left-hand side, you have that Cisco ICND, and I know we're not going over that. I just had a quick question. Your next meeting for that, is it next Wednesday?
Yes, it is, 25th.
Okay. All right, just want to make sure I had the right day because I have some questions for that, so I'll hold them till then.
Okay. Is the security exam tough? I would say it's more rote. It's more term and definition oriented, Augustine, than the A+ and Network Plus, but I don't know if you would call that tougher or not. So that all depends how people learn. It's a straightforward test. It's just that you have to know your terms and definitions well, and you have to know your terms and definitions well the way CompTIA presents them. That's really the key.
I just did that one last Wednesday and passed it, and like I said, my write-up on the forums, the thing I'm like you say, they're straightforward, Jason. That's exactly correct because, like for me, I go and look at those questions. I either know the answer or I don't. That's why I've always taken tests my whole life. The thing is, I was done with enough time. I think I had 32 minutes left, and I went back through the entire thing. And after the second run through, I had 12 seconds left, so I clicked the submit button. But the thing is, I was writing them down, not writing them, but taking tick marks. I actually found 5 where when I originally looked at the questions, I said, yep, I know that, and I clicked it and went on, even though I marked it for review. And the thing is, when I went back to the review, I had it wrong, and I had to change it to the correct answer because in my mind, it's like I think I was probably, I hate to say it this way, but I felt like I was studying too much because it's one of those things where you were sort of like clicking away, thinking, okay, I got this. Thank goodness if I was able to go back and redo that stuff because sometimes I think it gets a little too repetitious, depending on how you study. So, but you're right though. The test definitely had. I mean, a lot of it is straightforward. You look at it and you can get it that way. But my own personal take was I'm glad I went through it a second time.
Well, that's good. So Paul had a question here. It says, what about mobile devices? It seems like the real threat to infect the network. Oh, certainly they can be. So that's why the biggest combat for that is to have some kind of mobile device management system in place to where, you don't let mobile devices on your network unless they pass certain tests that you put on them. And you know what? There's a lot of, I don't remember if they cover this in Network Plus or not, but I'm just going to say it anyway. So, because I know they cover it in a couple of NTA courses from Microsoft, but that's why one of the best ways you can set up policy for mobile devices is, can you isolate with a subnet to get them on a network? That's one possibility, but the best way to do that really is to have a mobile device management system in place, like a Microsoft Intune or something similar to that. Have policies to where you're very specific about what types of devices you allow on the network. Thirdly, and I'm not going to spend all the time explaining this right now, but there's apps that go hand in hand with that you can say, all right, well, if you want your mobile device to be on my network, you've got to install this app. Here's the configuration. Here's the security certificate you need to use to get to our network. Oh, and by the way, if you mess with us, we're going to wipe out your whole device. Personal information included. You'd be very surprised how well people behave when they know that if they try anything funny, their precious pictures are going to all disappear. It's called a full wipe. So.
Blackmail.
Blackmail. It's funny. It's just tit for tat, semi-friendly persuasion. Call it what you want.
It's called ransomware.
But just for your amusement, given my love of Microsoft,
Yes.
I am taking the Microsoft Server class this semester.
Oh, good for you.
Let's see how long it is before I throw a server out the window. No, I mean,
I didn't hear anything. Funny.
At least it's gotten better, and they don't insist have to have GUI on it.
Are you doing 2012 or 2016?
2012.
2012. Okay, yeah.
I
Funny thing is, you can do a lot of
To what?
You can do a lot of management in the console now. It's just
once they do the get the 2012, I'll probably look at getting the 2016, but that's what is in the class. So.
All right, cool. All right, what else we got? Anything?
Yeah, question.
Yeah.
And the CompTIA test, how much of it is, how much do they cover on Linux? Because it seems like I'm seeing some Linux stuff around, so I'm trying to figure out some commands. I mean, which most likely is on the command line too. So how much of it is on the CompTIA?
Sure. The easy answer. A+, right?
Yes.
Oh.
Okay. Very simple. Because there's a lot of distributions of Linux, if you take the list of commands that are on the objectives, you know which one does what, you're fine.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's it. It's a defined objective. It's not a configure objective. So like if you know what MD does, if you know what the dir does in Linux, if you know what the I don't have it in front of me, but there's like about 15 or 20 of them. If you know what they do,
wait.
Mm-hmm.
dir in Linux?
I'm sorry, not dir. The equivalent of dir, excuse me. I misspoke. My bad.
I had to do it.
LS, yes. See, you start talking about Windows Server, then the Linux question throws me the curveball, and now I'm lost. So,
yeah.
LS, thank you. LS. Hey, Tristan, you might want to add it to that.
Or even better, LL.
LL, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so then another question here is, when doing Cisco search, is it better to have a home lab? What kinds of switches, routers? There are so many. Well, if you can get some equipment, great. I know some people that will actually try to get some used stuff off eBay or something like that for a home lab, but I would say that a tool like the BOSA NetSim simulator is going to do you just as well without you having to go buy all that equipment. And Cisco tests do not test you on what kind of routers and switches you have, so that part's not really important. I mean, when I did this, when I did the Cisco courses, I want to say that we used like a 3560 Catalyst switch and a 2700 something router when we did the simulations. But again, I mean, a good simulator will do you just fine. All right, anything else? Hey, listen, everybody, before I go, I just want to let you how to get ISO files. Well, it depends which operating system you're trying to get, but for Linux, I would go to the site like ubuntu.com and things like that. Microsoft, I'd go to Microsoft.com and do a search on trial versions of Windows.
You can also go to distrowatch.org, and it has almost all of the different distros of Linux.
Oh, you go, Distro Watch. There you go. Thank you. So, I do want to let you all know I am going to be here next Thursday.
All right, I won't
actually
in for me, so you guys are going to get a bit of a.
I'm actually filling in for Tristan next Thursday.